Welcome to my VR desk setup. For the next 7 days, I'm going to work solely from here as I explore if you can really and truly work in VR. On day one, I needed to get things set up and ideally get to work quickly without spending too much time. Now, Horizon Workrooms made this pretty easy, and actually with the ability to have 3 screens in addition to the lovely log fire and beautiful scenery around me, I have to say that my first experience of working in VR is blowing me away. I don't think the screen recording will do justice to the quality of the screen in front of me, but it is like mind-blowing how clear it is. It even gives you a virtual keyboard on my desk that looks exactly like the one I'm using and shows my fingers over the keys as I type. Now, the only issue I have is if I get up too close to something. First, it feels like you're going cross-eyed, and secondly, it just starts looking really out of focus. Now, Monday is when I plan and script a ton of my video content on this channel, so I spend most of the day using Notion and Google Docs to plan out the ideas that I have. And here is where I ran into my first major problem, the battery life. Or rather, it's not actually an issue because we just sat still at a desk all day, so we can just take a USB charger and plug in our headset. Now, the only thing I will say is using the official Oculus Quest Link cable is very, very heavy, and it actually weighs the headset down and makes it uncomfortable. These small, very thin, very light Apple USB-C cables actually make a really good job. The other issue I've had is my complete inability to drink whilst wearing this headset, both because the Quest Pro doesn't allow you to easily take a sip, and because it is just nearly impossible to figure out where your glass is on your desk. The best workaround for this I found is to ensure my drink is always in the top left corner of the desk area, which I can see in VR. Day one, great success. Day two started out much the same, but I realized that being enclosed in this VR world was beginning to be a bit lonely. So I discovered an app called Immersed, and oh my god, it is like having a VR version of WeWork, but way cooler. Welcome to my new VR office in Immersed. Check out all of my screens. I explored some public areas and ended up hanging out with a group of people who were just all socially working. The features on this Quest Pro, where it can track your eyes, your mouth, and your eyebrows to give you this realistic facial impressions while speaking, really shows its grit. I think Zuckerberg might actually be onto something. We have Michaela on the right here, who's just busy online shopping, and a bunch of guys, some developers, and even one of the developers of the Immersed app itself, all just sat in this virtual cafe, like chatting away, and it was the nearest I've had to working in a busy social office since I sold my IT business back in 2020.
I keep getting this weird visual bug that periodically just one of my screens will go into like TV static mode, and it stays that way until I hide my screens and then show them again.
The guys said they were heading into a conference on Web 3.0, and since I was now part of the crew, I just decided to tag along and listen. We mostly just sat there listening whilst we continued to work, but it was nice to just sit there in the presence of other people for a change, and to be able to chat over various talking points in the conference. And this is where it dawned on me that this is just the perfect use case for VR. If the last 2 years have taught us anything, it's that whilst some of us might be introverts and enjoy time, spent alone, we also still crave human interaction. But this kind of interaction in the metaverse feels safe and protected, unlike the daunting and, for some people, overwhelming experience of real-world co-working environments. Working in VR might just be the best way to fulfill both the desire to interact and the desire for a safe, isolated, and focused environment that we might get at home. Work done for the day, and before I went to bed, I looked in the mirror and gave myself a right fright. Wearing a VR headset definitely isn't kind to your face, particularly for your forehead, and it isn't good for my hair at all. I hope that's not a permanent red mark on my head. Day 3, and the mark is gone, but only temporarily, as we don our headset to go start another day. Today is going to be new for me, since I actually need to go and do things in the real world, outside of VR, and make a few YouTube videos. I wonder how this might go. I hope people like me. I think about asking people to subscribe to my YouTube channel, but I decide not to. I don't want it to sound desperate. Anyway, video shot, and back into VR I go for a few scheduled meetings. Chris joins me to brainstorm some ideas before he momentarily passes out at his desk. I tried resuscitating him, but I'm really not holding out much hope. I think it's a case of a dead battery. Oh!
I can't find the charge port on there.
But he lives. Back to fight another day as we finish off our brainstorming session and high-five each other to celebrate. My next call is with Chris and our newly made friends from the US, Christian and Matthew from Made, who appear in this floating video type screen. And one thing is that the spatial audio in VR is really impressive. Like, these small details make a really difference when working in VR, like standing up to peek over my screen to see others, or hiding my screen so I can talk. I can see when others have their screens in front of them and when they're typing or they're looking at the board. Day 4 was a pretty standard work day, mostly just consisting of emails and a few more calls. On the subject of emails, I've been asked a few times in my other videos what this screen is that says like good morning or good afternoon, and it is an awesome email client I've discovered called Spark. Even though I use Gmail, it is better. Like, it keeps newsletters and notifications out of the way in separate folders and puts the emails I actually want to respond to at the very top. And the biggest feature that I've come to love are keyboard shortcuts. Now, it may sound really simple, but E marks emails as done, U makes them unread, and S snoozes them. You can also either set aside or pin important emails, though I choose to leave emails in my inbox until I've actually dealt with them. But using Spark, checking my email takes literally less than half the time it used to. So check out the link down below. There's a totally free version which still gives you the awesome keyboard shortcuts, and there are paid for plans with more features. The fact is, we're actually on day 4 now, and I'm yet to suffer any form of eye strain or even fatigue. Remember when you were a kid and your parents told you, like, son, if you sit that close to the TV, it'll give you square eyes. And here we are, just a few years later, with the screens literally millimeters away from my eyes. I tried listening to some music whilst working. I had to decide between using headphones or the built-in speakers. It still sounds better coming straight out of my proper desk speakers. And also, the audio controls on the headset are just pretty fiddly, to be honest. And also, because I can still hear my other human life outside of the headset, I can still hear the doorbell to take deliveries or speak to my better half, although both the delivery guy and my wife find it a bit weird me wearing the headset. Now, this headset has also started feeling quite heavy after wearing it for a while, but other than a very red forehead and a bit of a messy haircut, I'm not noticing any real impact in terms of the function and use of this for a whole 6 to 8 hours a day. After a few meetings, I stayed in this empty meeting room for a bit longer just to glance at the board whilst working. I'm finding this really useful, by the way. With Chris able to join back in as quickly as someone physically walking into a meeting room as if it was a real office. It'd actually be really cool if there was a knock on the door feature. I guess kind of like the Zoom waiting room where you can let people in, perhaps. Day 5 was a quiet day, so I decided to just go and work in a public room, not so I can talk to someone, but just to be in company. That's
the main character, and it's about this this Mormon cop in, honestly, the actual the city where I grew up. It's right next door, the city I grew up to.
I ended up sitting in the corner of the cafe I've grown quite fond of and overheard a couple of people discussing the whole Russian conflict thing. It was good to get some work done and actually have some conversation in background. You know when you just have that in an office and you hear something you have an opinion on and you can just shout over your random thoughts? Yes, just like that. Day 6, and I decided to revisit my friends in the cafe as some of them were online again, so we just hung out and did some working together whilst chatting about the differences of soccer versus football between England and the US. I think I also upset somebody when I told them I didn't really care for either of them, as I'm not really into my sport. I'm yet to lose a VR friend yet, but I feel like this might be getting pretty close, so I don't push it any further and just leave it there. Now, I realise I actually spend quite a bit of time in my actual meeting room, and since I have a couple of meetings today, I decided to make it a little bit more homely. I throw a picture of me and Chris in LA on the wall, add my logo, though it doesn't really fit that well. I guess I'll have to speak to the architects about that one. And for finishing touches, I add a picture of my kids behind me. Now it is really starting to feel more homely. Day 7, and the realisation that I'm almost at the end of this experience, it's got me feeling a little bit nostalgic. Now, I visit my friends one last time to Immersed and chat to them about their experience of working in VR. Some of them basically use this every single day, just like I've been, where this is the VR equivalent of a WeWork office, like hopping in and out of public spaces whilst working. I think I've actually become part of this community here in the VR world, a space where I can come to work and be productive, but I'm not alone anymore. I finish out my day by playing some Beat Saber, absolute classic. And with one of my favourite games of all time that I've ever come across on the Quest so far, and it's free, even better, Echo VR, which is pretty damn close to making me feel like I'm in Ender's Game. So after 7 days in VR, am I really ready to say that this experience was a runaway success? For the most part, actually, yes. There are genuinely only a small handful of downsides that I can think of when it comes to VR. Yes, the headset is quite heavy and leaves an impression on your forehead when you wear it for a while. Yes, the battery life does need improvement, and it's not going to be as clear as the high definition, 4K, 5K screens in terms of pixel peeping. I think of all the things that have come out of this experiment, the only awkward thing is that pass-through mode, where you can kind of view both your virtual desk at the same time as the world around you. It just can't really handle the changes in brightness at all. So for example, when sitting here in my room and I turn to face the window, which looks down my driveway, in the VR headset, I just see this bright white square. I couldn't tell you, for example, if there's a courier outside dropping something off, and sometimes I can't even hear the doorbell go because I'm busy chatting with someone in VR with the speakers close to my ears. Now what does happen is the delivery driver pulls up and sees this plonker walking around, waving my hands in the air whilst I draw on the whiteboard, looking like a right idiot. But on the other hand, I made friends. I had fun. I actually had productive meetings using a real whiteboard in person, and the biggest of all surprises to me, I actually felt part of something. And as someone who works from home by myself 99% of the time, it was nice to have some friends again. I'm going to miss a lot of this world after I leave it, for good. But at least for now, I'm going to do one last conversation with my friends. Until day 8, because I'm not going anywhere. You're my new VR friends. I wouldn't leave you.